Hello and welcome to Cloud Native Media Online. And it's absolutely fantastic to have you here this evening for this very special live event. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we're doing in 2026, what the state of cloud native media is in 2026. And of course, coming up, we have our absolutely amazing guest, François Legrand from CBC Radio Canada, to talk about the Milan Cortina Olympics, which is happening in just over 2 weeks. So I think the opening ceremony is 2 weeks on Friday. So really looking forward to hearing what we are doing cloud natively, or what CBC Radio Canada are doing cloud natively at Milan Cortina, and that's something that I think we're all very, very looking forward to hearing about. Right, so let's get to it and bring in my wonderful co-host, Mr. David O'Dwyer. Let's get you on this stage. Hello, David. How are you? Oh, possibly muted. Oh, sound. Yeah, not getting any sound. Yeah, okay. We were talking like only 10 minutes ago for this bit. So it just goes to show it is okay. David's just gonna rejoin and we will continue at that moment. So let's swap the background to that and wait for David to pop back. So a microphone issue. So as I say, we've got that coming up, and I think it's absolutely an absolutely great thing to talk about Milan Cortina, and it's quite an exciting time. David, have we got you this time?
I believe we have audio now.
Oh, fantastic, lovely, thank you, and
so,
great to hear you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm glad we got all the technical demons out of the way within the first all the year's technical issues compressed within the first sort of minute or so of our first online.
Well, quite, yes, and I think let's hope that's it. But I mean, I think we did one of these, didn't we, back in November, and then I had Ben very kindly helped to do the driving of the layouts and everything. But tonight I'm doing it while I'm presenting as well. So if anybody sees it a little bit going a little bit awry, then it's all my fault. So shall we talk about cloud native media in 2026, David, and what our plans are?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Why don't well, let's start talking about what our different types of events are. So we've come up with we've realized that we want to do 3 types of events from this point. So historically, 3.5 years ago, we started Cloud Native Media as a regular in-person meetup with live streaming, and we did this online event last year, and I think it went pretty well. We had some really interesting Spanish, if you remember that, David, and I think the Spanish dub was great, and I watched myself speaking in Spanish and watched you speaking in Spanish, and it was all a little bit uncanny, but the people who spoke Spanish told me it was pretty good. So I think we've now got these online events. We still want to do in-person events, and then also we have social events, right? So I guess what are you thinking about the in-person events and the online events? And I know you've got some ideas about how they're going to relate to each other.
Yeah, I suppose it's more just the sort of nature of how things have changed in terms of cloud native within media, is that there is a lot more continuous news. Things are developing faster, and whereas previously I would say we were very much trying to focus on bringing like-minded people together. And we were in a position where we were talking about the potential of the technology and talking about this is a direction of travel for media-related infrastructure. And really just kind of bringing people together. Now there's a lot more usage. So it's less about the potential, more about the production. So moving into the online space, I feel we're in a much better place to be able to bring a wider range of views, global range of views in more easily. and start getting those production use cases and start getting different those sort of wider points of view in front of people. That's not to say that we're obviously moving away from our in-person events. Our in-person events are very important to us. I think they're a large part of our, what makes us unique in this space. And really what it would do is allow us to kind of put more focus into those events and ensure that they are at the sort of quality and level that people have come to expect from our events, as well as, Paul, what we expect ourselves. And yeah, I'm really calling out more the social aspects. A large part of the in-person events has been the social aspects, but there's a number of different meetups and events happening outside the context of CNM, and really it's just creating a space for these sort of people that have come on this journey with us to kind of meet up around these events, and perhaps have a slightly more relaxed setting to discuss and talk about whatever the sort of general event we've been associated with. And I know you've got some dates to throw up and some events.
Yeah, well, let's see if I can get those dates up and get us out of the way so people can see them. Yeah, let's do that. We have, it looks quite a full program, doesn't it? I mean, I think I really liked the events that we did over the last couple of years that had a key theme to them. So we had our panel last summer about open standards. We had previously a multi-cloud focused event. We've had an AI future focused event. And I think, the feedback we've got as well is that those events have been the ones that people remember, the ones that people appreciate the most in terms of the content. So I think, our focus here is to try and do more of those and focus on how we build those themes. So I think we talked about it. Maybe, we'll have a theme that centers around one of the in-person events, and then the online events should be then supporting the in-person event that's coming up.
Exactly. And so I think what we decided is that the idea of kind of having these quarterly themes, and having things which we can sort of curate some information around and some talks around, and again, generate some conversation around it online ahead of the actual in-person event, so that people aren't necessarily coming in cold to the concepts or the ideas, that we're able to support that with some sort of long tail information leading into it. Yeah, that's great. And of course, we want speakers as well, right? So there is a link on the bottom of that slide saying, if you want to come and speak at one of our events, do fill in the form. We do look at it, and I think what we do want to do there is try and assemble those into themes rather than I remember in the early days we used to just get speakers and people come and talk on, and that was great. But I think where we are now, I think really focusing around those themes for each event or for each quarter is a really really strong thing. And I think it's a testament to where we've how far we've traveled in this space. And the fact previously in the early days, it was very much, is anybody out there? Is anyone doing any of this interesting things? Again, we were really talking about the potential rather than the production. Whereas now, because companies are, quite well embedded in this space, and the technology is starting to embed itself more and more, we have the benefit of being able to curate some of this. So that's what we want to do.
Excellent. And of course, we're always going to need vendors, people who want to get involved. This is a community group. It's not a it's not a solo venture or a media driven thing. I think we really want participation from across the media space and the technology space, and from anyone around the world. So obviously François will be joining us from Canada a little bit later. So all of that is another reason to do online events as well as events in London or in other parts of the UK, or in I think we've got a social at IBC in Amsterdam again on the agenda. So and I should say that these dates have we updated cnm.live/date?
We
Yeah,
have.
great. So these dates
My,
are all up there for those who want to go and look at them. Put them in your diary.
mhm.
Obviously, things always change. That's life. That's being agile, and they may have to change. But those are the events we're working to right
Yeah.
today.
I think it's fair to say that the social aspects are pretty much set in stone. And really, it's the online we're pretty comfortable with. It may be some of the in-person events we may move around, but at the moment that seems a pretty fair uh, overview of what we got.
Great. So we've talked about the group.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit more about what does cloud native, what's next for cloud native media in 2026.
Yeah.
So not the group, the technology, right? And I think I came up with this image which I'm going to talk about briefly and then hand over to you, David. But I guess what I wanted to illustrate here is that there was a time when we played records and vinyl records and CDs and cassettes and all of those things, and that got digitized in the 1990s, early 2000s. There's a picture of Winamp there. There were Windows Media Player, iTunes. There were all of those things which were effectively a digitization of that analog world. But then where we are now with music is we've moved on from that world into a world of Spotify. And I guess for me, this is the metaphor of, okay, we've done stuff with the cloud, with software, with all of these things, but now we need to make it native to that. How does the organizational model, the workflows, the business model, how things are done, how we think about things, all our mental models, how does that change in the way that we went from buying music as a transactional thing to a monthly subscription on Spotify? Now, obviously, I think there are some concerns about that business model. It's not been great for everyone, but it is, it has happened, and it is the direction of travel in that music space. I'm sure there'll be other things in the future where it moves further forward. But I guess for us with media workflows, we've still got a lot of what I would call digitized media workflows in the space. So we went from analog and we went we went for digital TV signals. And then we switched from boxes that were bespoke to boxes running Windows, running software, and that's evolved. But I think now we're talking about, instead of just being software and networks, cloud native actually pulls apart that whole workflow and rethinks it in a cloud native fashion. And that's about changing not just what's in the software, but how it all fits together and the processes we go through to do things. So I guess I hand over to you, David, because I think this is where your experience in other industries then becomes quite interesting. Let's take that off or let's get us back and take that image off.
To me, so I mean, you really you've summarised it very well there, and I think one of the leading message here is around how we essentially work with the cloud. So for a number of companies, what they've done is, when they first were faced with using the cloud, they looked at it as a way of cost savings. They looked at it as a way of offloading compute. They were just using it as another data center. So what they essentially did is they lifted and shifted their existing infrastructure and placed it. They had 5 servers and they all had individual names. They took those 5 servers and booted them up within the cloud, and then gave them 5 names and carried on working in exactly the same way that they were working before. And it's very much similar to what Paul mentioned. It's this idea of where companies essentially digitized existing solutions to fit within that model. So we went through a period of time where, looking at the media space, we had videotapes or tapes, and tapes went into inboxes, and they went into departmental inboxes, and then from inbox they went for one inbox and out, processed out another to another to another. And we have seen within media organizations that they have followed that exact same pattern within their cloud or within their IT systems, where they have a shared folder and they have software that reads from one folder, writes to another, reads from one folder, writes to another. And they run this stuff in the cloud. And so they've got this wonderful cloud-enabled solution, which is doing mirroring exactly what they were doing before it was digitized. So I think one of the primary shifts is this idea of moving. I think, again, the key point here is how to work with the cloud. And I think one of the first things companies and individuals have to understand is that you are essentially, when moving into a cloud native space, you are moving from a static space to a dynamic space. And that is the biggest mental model shift. This idea of moving from server like 1 to 5 is no longer the case. You're now moving into a place where you're no longer thinking about things in terms of individual servers, pets versus cattle, where I've given them individual names. It's the idea of moving into, I don't have 5 unique servers with names. I have 5 servers that give me resource X. And these servers are dynamic, and they may fail and they may come back. And there's nothing unique about them. I can restore them, or I have processes that restore them if they go down automatically. These are just compute nodes. That's just one high level idea. But the big head shift is media moving from a place which is very entrenched in physical systems with lots of static, unique elements into a space which is more fluid, more dynamic, and more changeable. So this is the big shift. And this is something that's not just a technology shift. It's also a sort of a people, a process, a team shift. So it's that idea of, Conway's law, which, I know you've mentioned a number of times, and the idea that the architecture reflects the structure of the team. And so, again, going back to that structure straight, it went from inbox A to inbox B to inbox B, and the new technology architecture reflected that, because that's what the team structure is. So when we talk about cloud native, and what we're going to be talking about going into this year isn't just about the technology. It's going to be about what's needed in terms of a people, a process, a structure, a sort of outlook about how you approach these projects, how you approach working with this technology, what that approach means, not just from a technology point of view, but from a team and process and standpoint as well. Because we've seen it countless times within our organization where companies have tried to do one without the other, and it's caused problems. I'm not saying it's failed, but it's caused a lot of problems. And so whenever we go into organizations now, we very much more lead with the team rather than the technology, because it's that essential to working with this. So from a cloud native media, we are going to be talking a lot more about the processes and the agile and the team element of this. But going into sorry, Paul, please.
I was going to say, and of course, when we bring AI into the picture, these things become even more important, don't they?
More important, exactly. They do become more important. And I know you'll be talking about AI, maybe not today, but expect more with Paul speaking about AI going into this year. Potentially not under the CNN banner. It depends, but Paul will be talking more about AI going into the year. So I'll.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll give you a bit of marketing there. So so the other aspects of it going to technology around working with the cloud is suddenly when you start talking about things such as using open source technology, or more specifically using open standards. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Really is where we're zoning in on is the use of these open standards and the sort of interoperability of those standards, and how that can improve the general, like the wider community, or the wider community in media, technology community in media. Go.
So we had that wonderful panel, didn't we, last summer in that great venue with the view of the Tower of London and everything. That was brilliant. And we had Bruce Devlin, and we talked about these open standards and how they support media. And I think we had an intro there from Russell Trafford Jones about DMF, and we had an intro there from Sam Mesterton Gibbons about TAMS. And I think these are the kinds of standards where we can now say, we've been talking about cloud native media for 4 years or so, but cloud native media through these standards is actually starting to emerge as a real thing that you can do, rather than a thing that you go and experiment with, right? And I think that's where these standards are really then foundational to how we're going to operate our future workflows in a cloud native way, with all of the benefits that will bring, all of the agility, the dynamic scaling, the spin up, spin down. I mean, I worked on the Olympics a few years ago, and there was months to set up an Olympics installation, right? So I think this is the kind of thing where we want to be able to cut down the amount of setup time for a sporting event. We want to be able to do more sporting events because it'll be a more cost effective thing to do. So these are all of the kind of benefits that we're talking about. And so DMF, I think, is quite core to that. And maybe it's time to bring in François. What do you think?
Yeah, brilliant. Let's bring in François.
Yeah. Okay. So François, hello, bonjour.
Bonjour, Paul. Hello, David.
Yeah.
Hi, François.
So thank you so much for coming and joining us today, and I appreciate it's afternoon for you, it's evening for us, and that's reflecting the true global nature of what we're doing and what you're doing, more importantly, with your work at Milan Cortina. I see SVG Europe published my article on it yesterday, which I think you've already told me is out of date, but I think it sort of gives an overview. But let's hear from you. I think what we want to hear from you is well, what are you going to be doing in a couple of weeks at Milan and Cortina, and what does that mean in terms of DMF? And then, so you're going to do a little presentation, I think, and then David and I will come back in and we'll have a little bit of a conversation about it, maybe. So let me see if I can add your. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to add your presentation onto the stage, and then I think we'll pop off and leave you to it. So François, everybody, please listen to what all of the great stuff he's going to say about how this is going to work in just over 2 weeks. Take it away.
Thank you, Paul. So it starts with an idea. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but when there is global events such as the Olympic, all of the media rights holder, they work with a partner we have called OBS, and basically OBS is responsible to produce all of those sporting events. However, they do a terrific job at doing it, but most of the rights holder, like us, we want to add some regional flavor to it. So the goal is to take a pre-produced event and add graphics, add local commentator that people here in Canada know about. It could be promo, or it could be a squeeze back with additional information. And we want to do that in a way that is cost effective, that is scalable. And we wanted to use that as a test bench for the cloud native media production idea, or what we call the DMF ideas. More on this later. So what we see right now are a screen grab from a user interface that will be used in 2 weeks from now to create the Milano Cortina event, some of them. But before we go there, I want to talk briefly about the EBU Dynamic Media Facility initiative. If you have read Paul's article, you're probably already familiar with the concept. The DMF work group published just before IBC 2024, almost 18 months ago, a reference architecture to help broadcaster and media organization to organize their infrastructure in a way that's going to make it agile, flexible, scalable, using concepts that are already known by the IT industry. It helps to have a common language. We also use that document to that reference architecture to identify any potential gaps that might be in today's system to fix first. And one of the gaps that was identified is that media exchange layer right here. The media exchange layer sits right between what is specific to the broadcast industry or media industry and what comes from the generic IT industry. And it is basically the wire, the technology used to interconnect media functions from multiple vendors together, so that those systems that are dynamic and that leverage the same architectures as cloud native system can exchange frames of media, of video, samples of audio in the GT NM reference architecture. This is called grains of information. There will be an updated version soon of the reference architecture. You can go on the EBU website or use the QR code to access the current version, but be aware that there's an updated one coming soon. So the first gap that was identified is the media exchange layer. As I said, the goal is when you have two software processes that sits on the same host or that are part of a cluster of hosts, there's probably a better way to interconnect them together than using a wire. 2110 is great, NDI is great, SRT is great. There's a place for all of those technologies in the market, but we in the EBU think that they're not the most efficient way to interconnect media functions together. And what's better? Well, the MXL SDK use shared memory concept so that application can expose or access some shared memory and enable function to exchange data between themselves. This is not new. There were tons of tools doing that for decades, if not more. But the goal is to have multiple companies, vendor, and open source project to do it in the same way so that it became compatible. And typically in our industry, the way to make things compatible is to go through a standardization process, which is great, but often takes a lot of time. And it doesn't guarantee interoperability because you have a good spec, a good standard, but now you have engineers that read the spec, implement it, and they may have a different interpretation of the same word and concept. So after the implementation, there is a phase of tests, plug fest to make sure that this works together. And what's new this time is that we, with the help of EBU, some of their members, NABA, and the Linux Foundation, an open source project was put together. It's called the MXL project. And there is end user and there is manufacturer working together to build that SDK, leveraging IT technologies when it makes sense and adding that extra know-how and knowledge our industry has when it's necessary. And the first version of the SDK was released as a release candidate on Christmas 2 weeks ago. So it is fairly new, but the fact that now there is a release candidate means that the API is frozen and that people can implement it. And I'm quite positive that we'll see some exciting news about this in the coming weeks and months. So, and then there is also another work group called the Joint Task Force on Dynamic Media Facility that increase the reach of that initiative to also include the AMWA members. So this is great because EBU is a user group. AMWA is both user and manufacturer. So by widening the scope of the dynamic media facility project and having more people, it's gonna speed up things, we believe. This group is going to meet in March. That's our next face-to-face meeting at CBS. So thank you, CBS, to host that event. And it's going to cover other gaps and other topic other than the MXL, like synchronization, the sharing of compute resource, the flow discovery and connection mechanism. And last but not least, how can we make a sustainable business or have the company to succeed using those concepts from a business standpoint? Because there's still some uncertainties there, and I'm sure that's the way to go, and I'm sure there's plenty of dollar to be made using those concepts, but it needs to be discussed. So let's dig into the details. So what you saw from the screen grab, that's a very simplified drawing that explain how it works internally. So we have a tool. What is really interesting is that the UI is made by CBC Radio-Canada. However, most of the technology under the hood comes from either open source project or media vendor that offers commercial product. Each color in here represent a different manufacturer, so it shows that the workflow you saw is multi-vendor. So we have more than one vendor included in the solution. We have a tool that is 100% pure software that is mostly containerized. So when you see a little Docker container, it means what it's meant to mean. So it is a media function running today in a container. And when you see the Kubernetes logo, not only it is a container, but it also leverage our Kubernetes cluster that was built to host that workflow. When you see no icon, it means that it is still software, but it runs bare metal. And but we're working with those vendors to bring that to Kubernetes. It was just not ready on time for the Olympic Games that are 2 weeks from now. And the small one at the bottom, I'm missing a logo, that R-Range Production Automation Control. It runs in the public cloud. So it runs in AWS as we speak. So the tool can basically take the production that comes from the stadium or external video feed. They could be a beauty camera. It could be a second angle from a camera. It could be a bunch of different video elements. We don't really care. We have the ability to ingest those signals, whether as 2110 video input or as encoded video input. Here it is being shown as H.264, could be HEVC. It also works. And then we have audio inputs. The audio inputs are additional audio inputs, not the embedded audio from the venue. It can come from a commentator using a laptop, because we have a commentator UI so that a commentator can describe, comment using just nothing but a laptop. And in that case, the input is a WebRTC input, or it could be a more traditional boot where we have a console and the output of that boot comes in the form as a 2110 audio input. This is also fine, and to be honest, that's the commentary that we will do in 2 weeks. We'll mostly use that workflow, and then we have video processing functions like frame rate conversion, like color correction, like virtual frame sync. all of that is possible. We can render graphics. So we have HTML5 graphics renderer in software. We can also play clips that could be promo, stings, bumpers, things like that. And then we have a video mixer that makes all of that video, again, in software running in a container. The sources and the output of the video mixer are available in a multi-viewer that combines all those video screen element into a single one that is then streamed to the user, because the operator, they have nothing but a laptop, and they operate everything from their laptop. So we do that using a simple WebRTC transport layer to the user interface. The audio is similar to video, but in the audio world, again, all software. And the output of the audio mixer, there's 2 outputs. One that got merged with the UI so that the user can hear and see audio from his browser, and one that goes to our existing distribution infrastructure using 2110. So for the operator, that's the current UI. The UI is, you see the various inputs. You see your local graphics renderer, and you have your 2-clip player. Right now, there is no pictures in the 2-clip player, but you can imagine that there could be a cute clip. And then there's very few buttons. And this is on purpose. It was, we had several versions of the UI put together. And based on user feedback, they preferred that those buttons that are very easy, they're pre-programmed cues that generates a bunch of action under the hood, and that's about it. Something very important to that workflow is the ad break section you see at the top right. And those ad breaks, it's because the operator also inserts Scotty trigger so that a downstream ad server can insert ads into our streams. And basically, it's a human decision that now it's a good time in the production to insert an ad, so they can type in whatever the duration they want. Is it 30 seconds, 60 seconds? Then there's a counter that's going to tell them what is the allocated budget for that production, how much they have consumed, and it's going to insert the Scotty trigger. They can also add to it if ever they want to during a break to add more time, because they feel it's a good time to do so. So under the hood, I said it's Kubernetes, but saying that it runs using Kubernetes would be way too simple. There is an array of tools that are working together to make this system work. At CBC, we are fairly new to Kubernetes for use for media production, but this is not our first dance using it. The first one we made was in partnership with NVIDIA in our lab in Montreal. We have an Holoscan for media cluster. And this cluster runs OpenShift from Red Hat. What we will be using in production this winter, it's a K3S. What's the long-term strategy for us? Yet to be determined. We need to learn from each of those approach, but there's our K3S cluster runs on Alma Linux. There's 3 core components to any Kubernetes install. So you have the container runtime, the networking, and the storage. And this is a container D, flannel, and the storage is it's SMB CSI with Longhorn. Observability, it's yet to be implemented, so it's very fragmentary as we speak. The CI/CD pipeline is Argo CD with Helm. We use Traffic as an API gateway, Metal LB as a load balancing. Authentication is managed through DEX, secrets with Vault, and the infrastructure as code is a mix of Ansible and Terraform, and the Kubernetes user interface is Headlamp. So that's what we're using right now in production. Something that we learned also is that it's good to have a production environment, but you also need non-prod and pre-prod so that you can test your apps that you deploy on that environment, making sure that while you troubleshoot the app, not necessarily the container platform. So that's why we have a prod environment, a non-prod environment, as well as a pre-prod environment. So unless there is question, and I'm sure there will be, that's the end for me.
Oh, cool. All right. Hopefully everyone can still hear me. Hello.
Yeah.
So I think, and David's back as well. So let's get ourselves into a full screen side by side, or no, I think that one works better, doesn't it? Alrighty. So thank you very much for that, and I think that was interesting. I'm looking at the chat, but I think in the meantime, David, what are your immediate thoughts and questions about all of this?
I mean, I really enjoyed that last screen. Not to say the other screens were not equally enjoyable, François, but that last screen, is it possible to get that back up briefly, Paul?
Yeah. It's still there. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Great. The reason why I liked this screen was because it highlighted how with Kubernetes and with containers and with this cloud native approach, this infrastructure is based around open standards. And so you've essentially been able to deliver the same stack, the same outcome, but with a variety of different components at each of the levels. So for instance, you're using Containerd on one side, you're using CIO on one other. You're using Flannel to do the connectivity, on the other you're using OVN Kubernetes. On one you're using Traffic, one you're in HA proxy. Completely different sort of technologies that may be, there may be home advantage. There may be people who understand those, like companies or industries understand those technologies better, but the stack works and is interoperable in that way. So it's interesting to note that with this, it's not just the interoperability of the media and the layers and the exchange of the layers, but it's also the sort of interoperability in terms of the lower parts of the stack when it comes to the infrastructure and the runtime. So I found this really interesting to see that you are running it in quite different. And one is, OpenShift has opinions. OpenShift is a Kubernetes distribution that has a lot of baked-in opinions. K3s has far less opinions. It's very raw and low level. So again, it's very interesting to see how this is being deployed in those two different environments at the same time. So is there a question in there? No, I just thought it was an interesting point before I move on to the questions.
And for those that wonder why there's color, I haven't explained it, but basically everything in black comes pretty much ready to use when you deploy K3s or OpenShift. And if it's orange, it means you have to get your hands a little bit dirty and integrate it. I'm not saying it's necessarily very difficult, but it just means you have to get your hands dirty, where when it's in black, those decisions were made, and it's pretty much out of the box and ready to use.
So getting very specific technical question. I'll back out after this, but with the Longhorn, what kind of files are you storing within your storage tier?
Well, the it's not media file. It's really to make sure that whatever is required for a container to work, it is stored using Longhorn.
Okay.
There is very it's bytes of data. It's not media files.
Okay. Just for the benefit of others, Longhorn is a distributed file system. So it's a file system that runs across multiple servers, and it takes the sort of commodity or server-based disks and then replicates and distributes and provides those as the sort of unified distributed storage persistent volume. So I was kind of interested to see, because I've not seen Longhorn used in a huge variety of different situations, and I wasn't sure if you were using it as within the media space, within that large storage, because that would be a very interesting use case. But essentially, it's there to provide a level of persistence, but not at the levels of like media storage.
Yeah, something we're trying to do, and we're learning with this, is that the container, of course, are stateless. When you turn them off, they disappear, and they will be reinstantiated later. But we in our world, we are used to have the media files somewhere. Before you play them, you cache them locally, and then you play from local cache. What we're trying to do is to play the file from where they are, using protocol like S3 or things like that. With sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. So in what we will be using this in 2 weeks for the Olympic Games, the files are locally cached also.
Interesting.
Not played from the source.
So, backing up a little bit in the general sort of architecture plan, like, have you got any notes or any memories around what you had to do in terms of resilience? Did you have to design this in a certain way? Was there a specific, what kind of work was there to make this a more resilient design?
Yeah, so we have multiple instances of this that runs in the same cluster. We have rules that guarantee that if things that need to work together in case of a problem will die together also, so that we can, with affinity and anti-affinity rules, so that the other instance doesn't share the same host, but we don't say use this host. We just configure the rule, and when this is started, the process will be spread.
So for the benefit of the viewers, the idea of the affinity and anti-affinity rules is that you're not saying run on this server or run on this server. You're saying these two containers shall either be next to each other or they should not be next to each other, for argument's sake. And then you're letting the scheduler decide where to put them. You're not deciding where to put them. The scheduler decides. But part of that scheduling, you're deciding if they're together or they're not together, so that if a node fails, that workload will then move together somewhere else.
Exactly. We don't have a second independent cluster at this time. Of course, we have the non-prod that could be used in prod, but there is a lot of problem with that, so we will not do it, and it's not part of our plan. And one of the reasons is that the non-prod is not licensed with the same license as the prod one for some of the tools, so it cannot be used. Everything with video, you would see a watermark on it if you were to use the non-prod in prod. So we know right away if a mistake, routing mistake or things like that was made, but
Right. And in terms of scale, is there any particular components of this that runs at a large, like a wider scale or a larger scale to the rest? I saw that there was one of the components was FFmpeg. So does that run at a larger scale than some of the other components running within the system?
Well, the FFmpeg is drawn as a single box, but there is multiple FFmpeg container that does a bit more than just the audio compression. In terms of scale, it's, how can I say that? we like to believe that we're special from the media industry, but everything we do is so tiny compared to the scale of what those systems were built for, that so far we don't see that many scaling issues. The server we have were bought before that DRAM shortage problem, so they have a half a terabyte of RAM each. So no, there's no RAM issue. There's no the GPU we bought are way more powerful than the actual usage we do with it. What we see in terms of scale issue, it's often on the cache access to cache, and that requires a careful planning of the NUMA nodes in the node. So that means basically that when you receive and send 2110, you need to make sure that your CPU core is as close as possible to the network function. But all those tools already exist in Kubernetes. So it's a matter of leveraging what's there, because those problems were solved by other before us. So that's
great. Just one last question, Paul, which is just around.
Sure.
Did you have to change the way that you worked with your system? Like, how did your processes or the team or the structure change working with the system opposed to working with more static systems?
We're in the process. We're learning as we are experimenting. It's very difficult to the way we used to do media is that we had one control room attached to one studio with one audio booth for one very specific show, and it was kind of static for a period of time. Now that everything is dynamic, you don't know which instance you will have, you don't know on which server it's going to run. When there is a problem and you don't know where that process is, you need some tool to be able to have better observability. It's not quite there yet, so it means that for the games in 2 weeks, some of the maintenance will be done by the dev that basically worked on it and the people that deployed it. It requires a mind shift at every level, from the user, from the engineers that build it, from the people that's going to support it. It's the lack of buttons is something new for those people. So we work with them, the UI, so that they would be comfortable with this UI. It doesn't mean it will not work with a Stream Deck. There is, but we're not using Stream Deck because we wanted to push as much as possible just the browser. So we still have some change management to do.
Well, thank you very much for your answers. I really do appreciate it. And again, thank you for taking us through that presentation. It was very insightful.
So rather wonderfully, we do have a couple of questions in the chat, and so I will bring those forward on behalf of those people. So we've got one from LinkedIn, which isn't identifiable, I think, for privacy. I don't know if you guys can see that, but how are you preparing your teams your teams to best support in this in the intermediate? Sorry, I've completely massacred that question, haven't I? I'll start right again and I'll learn to read. How are you preparing your teams to best support this in the immediate future, thinking of when you have this in a facility and heading from what David said, moving from static to dynamic? Are there any tools you're thinking about in how you're wanting to have your dynamic resources, whether that's the people, technology, allocated, I think visible, bookable, etc. I think that's a typo there near the end. So what? Yeah.
Many things. In the immediate, there's when something fails, the user, they're used to call a single phone number, and they expect that person there to be able to do the triage and to steer them in the proper direction. So those people that do the triage were trained. We have a training manual, a user manual, but they won't be able to do much, to be honest. So the people that put that together will be reachable in the immediate to do the first line of support, but it's going to come very quick after the first line. The first line will do the minimum triage, and that's it. Is it sustainable for the long term? Maybe not, but maybe it is, because when you look at other type of infrastructure, when something fails in any cloud system, DevOps, they come very soon in the troubleshooting process. So that's something we are looking at ourselves. Then how will we manage those dynamic resource? We did a couple of tests internally. The very first iteration of it, you could book your production in Google Calendar. I know it's not a tool designed for that, but it has a very nice API that using the API, you can do pretty much anything you want. And that was used just to test the concept. And people liked it, but it didn't have everything we required in terms of conflict management and things like that. But we're looking at option for the long term. For the games, it's going to be easy. It's going to be always on for the duration of the game, but that's not the long-term strategy.
Great, thank you very much. And we do have a second question, which is from Christian, again on LinkedIn. Thank you, Francois, for the very nice presentation. I totally agree. How much setup time would it be to prepare for an event?
Yeah, the goal is minutes. It's not hours. So you could, a few minutes before the event, have a trigger and then configure everything and use it. But for that to work, it requires a few prerequisites that we haven't reached yet. The first one is a good orchestration, scheduling. There's many ways you can call that, and that's going to be part, by the way, of the revision of the reference architecture from the DMF. But there's a bunch of things that need to happen before T0, and this is not in place right now. Then you need to build confidence in the user that is going to work. Because if the user are not confident that automation is going to kick in and work, and then they will have it at T0 or T minus 15 minutes, because that's what they're comfortable, well, they will instantiate it hours before the actual event, and then we'll lose compute resource for a period of time that we don't want to lose for that. So the answer is, today, it is because we don't have those prerequisites. To set up a workflow like that, let's say, takes a day, but in the future, we want to bring that to minutes. It takes a day once you have the cluster working, and yeah.
Brilliant. So I think in the last couple of minutes, David, shall we ask our final questions? I mean, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I must say, I kind of dipped into a little bit earlier on, but it was really, what's your personal experience with this sort of change? Like, what's some of the, what would you say is one of the highlights, one of the biggest sort of challenges that you've had moving into working with these more dynamic systems, or if there are any sort of key point that you want to give to the audience on this?
Yes, the first key point is that it is definitely possible to build multi-vendor production workflows. In maybe if I stop to share, that's going to help.
Sorry, I that was definitely that was definitely my fault. No, we don't want that one either. All right, I'll find
It
it
is
later.
possible to
you
build multi-vendor, low latency, software-based, cloud-native-based media production pipeline that are usable for sports production, including Tier 1. The technology is there today. Another key point is that many of the problems we are trying to solve were already solved by the IT industry. And when I say IT, it could also be AI, because a lot of the technology we are using are the same than those used to train those big LLM model. So we like to think we're special. We do, but not so special after all. The other key points is that our team, there's a mix of people that have a year or two of Kubernetes experience with people that are new to it. And you can learn that. And basically, if you're the type of people that at home have replaced their light switches and thermostat with an own automation system, well, you already have some of the skills you need to build those things. So if you wrote YAML in Home Assistant, it's the same YAML you will use with those infrastructures. So you're already on the good path to learn to use it, and don't be scared from
it. So sorry, David, did I interrupt you there asking something else when I was?
No, not at all.
No, we didn't get distracted there. Okay, great. So I guess my final question which is a little bit more of a personal question, just to wrap up with, is, we work in TV and media, and we talk a lot about technology, but ultimately, our end product is something that everyone consumes on a regular basis. I don't know anyone who doesn't watch something on a screen somewhere. So what are you watching, Francois, at the moment? What is it that you like to do to watch in your spare time, and what do you enjoy?
So I'm a mentor in FIRST Robotics competition, and for those that are aware, we learned this year challenge a little bit more than a week ago. So and my kids are part of it also. So we spend a lot of time looking what other teams are doing with their robot, and gathering ideas, and working on our robot with the kids at school. So that's probably what I'm watching the most at this time. But I also watch with my younger kids a show that we have on CBC, and I'm sure in the UK it's going to ring a bell. It's our version of What Would Your Kid Do? And that's we really enjoyed that show with my family.
Awesome. What I'll say is that when you have that competition, the robot competition, please reach out to us and let us know where you finish, and we will report back on. We'll update everyone on how you got on.
Good. Definitely.
Is the robot going to be using DMF behind the in the processor in the?
Well, not necessarily, but it runs. There's no Kubernetes, but there is container in that robots, and there is machine vision, and there is image processing. And there's a bunch of open source projects, one of them being OpenCV, which is quite popular in computer vision application. So it's not that far at the end of the day.
Well, Francois, I'm invested. So you've sold it. I would love to hear what happens with the competition. Anyway, Paul, your...
Super cool. I mean, thank you so much for joining us today, Francois. And I know you've got the rest of the day to do, and it's been so interesting to hear about this. And I'm excited to see what happens and to hear the stories of what went well and what didn't work to expectations and all of those kinds of things, because those are the crucial lessons that, of course, we learn by deploying this stuff in a real world event. And nothing beats covering live sport for really stretching the technology. It's got to work. There's never going to be a pickup, right? You don't get to do you don't get to do it again. It's got to be there. It's got to be present. It's got to work. And these are the events that really test the technologies and make sure that they're fit for building upon. And that's why I think this is such a with the limited stuff you're doing, it is a big milestone, I think, for DMF and for cloud native media in production, and I think that's very exciting. So of course, thank you as ever to David for very interesting questions and clearly interesting cloud native background and knowledge, and obviously we'll be continuing our events. So just to let you know what is coming up at Cloud Native Media, let me just rearrange ourselves here and get myself on here. So we have coming up some sort of online webinar again, I think on February the 23rd. That's the date. That's a Monday evening in February. It's after half term. And so we'll hopefully come up with an agenda for that. And then we've got the big one will be our next in-person event, which I will now, you see, the date is not quite with me right here, right now, but let me get the date up and I will tell you what date that is too. So let me get myself off this and we'll have a look at the date. So yeah, March the 18th, we've got in that for an in-person event in London. As I say, we're keen to have some venues and we've got a lot of planning and whatnot to do for that. And hopefully we'll be full of the joys of spring by then. So definitely looking forward to being there for that. Any final comments, David, before we go?
No, nothing else from me. I think it's all been covered. It's good to get to reaching out to the community again in 2026. I'm excited for what we're going to be doing the coming year. I think we've got a really good agenda and a really good number of event points to bring. So yeah, no, I'm genuinely excited for what we're going to be doing this year.
And thank you so much for joining us this evening or this afternoon or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, or if you're watching on the recap, the video that was recorded. Thank you very much as well. Thank you very much for staying to the end. It's always good to have you with us. If you enjoyed the presentation, do please press like and hit subscribe or follow on LinkedIn or whatever platform this is. Do all of the algorithmic stuff to make it sing. And on that, I think we'll look forward to our next event and see you all very, very soon. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.